So it is confirmed that this is the darkest timeline. Hi, nice to see you. If you don't know, my name is Jessie. I'm a screenwriter, and on this channel I make videos about, go figure, screenwriting. Today we are back doing another episode of Why Did I Spend My Time Doing This? Now, if you aren't aware, KFC over the last holiday season released a mini movie with Lifetime featuring Colonel Sanders as the main male love interest. When this movie was released, I swear to God, I had no less than 5 videos, commentary videos, pop up in my subscription feed on the exact same day. Everyone dunking on this movie. So what I've done is I've rewritten it in an attempt to make it better. I'm aware that this movie was pretty much intended to be bad or cringy or goofy or whatever. A lot of people are calling it a parody, and my big brain opinion on that is that it's not a parody. It was just lazy, because you can't be a parody of something if you're just using the tropes without actually commenting on them, which is what this movie does. But yeah, it's basically, it was a marketing tactic to, you know, get people talking about KFC and be like, wow, that's so ridiculous. But in my opinion, I think it would have been an even bigger flex to then put out a pretty decent movie. Also, it's full of plot holes, which was my main gripe with it. Like, you can be campy and silly, but you lose me when I start poking holes in the story. Also, the main character's name is Jessica, so I do volunteer myself to play Jessica in this version of the script, as long as D'Angelo Wallace plays Colonel Sanders. So without further ado, let's get into my version of A Recipe for Seduction. Okay, so we're opening up on a big Christmas party. In the original, it was just a small Christmas dinner. I feel like that was quarantine related. They needed to have very few extras and everyone needed to be spaced out. But this is just a digital piece of paper, so I can do whatever I want. So I'm having a big Christmas party. I think it better shows the status and wealth of the family, so that's what we're doing. So Jessica eats an hors d'oeuvre and she's like, wow, this is really good. The chef is really stepping up his game. And her mom is like, actually, there's a new chef in town. And by town, I mean this house. So this piques Jessica's interest, and she goes to the kitchen to see who it is. And guess what? It's Harland Sanders. He's not a colonel in this. I don't know why. I guess he's just too young to have risen to the ranks of colonel. What? Is that a high rank? I don't know. So in the actual movie, I think this was their attempt at a parody again, where Jessica just falls in love with Harland instantly. And on the one hand, I can relate to that. We're coming up on a year in quarantine, and I am kind of in that place where if you look at me, I will fall in love with you. It doesn't make for great storytelling. So I actually invented a reason for Jessica and Harland to get along so well and to fall in love. And guess what? It's food. So they start having a conversation about the hors d'oeuvres, and Harland's like, wow, you really know your stuff. And she's like, well, I went to a semester of culinary school. And we find out that Jessica's father recently passed away, same as in the original. But she had to drop out of culinary school to, you know, spend time with him and take care of him. And she's planning on re-enrolling in culinary school after Christmas. And it's then when we're interrupted by Jessica's friend Lee. We all remember him from the first one. So Lee comes in and he's like, yo, Jessica, Billy's looking for you. If you didn't watch the original, Billy is her boyfriend. She leaves and goes back to the party and sees Billy, and she's like not super feeling it. And Billy launches straight into a very public proposal, and Jessica's not having it. She's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And Jessica accepts out of, you know, public pressure, basically, which I feel is more accurate, because in the original, when he proposed, she just kind of ran away. Like, if anyone ever proposes to me in public, I'm gonna say yes, and then it's gonna be a no later, even if I did want to marry you, because don't ever propose to anyone in public, okay? And then we kind of get the same scene where Jessica comes down for breakfast, and her mom's trying to get this wedding planning underway. Jessica's like, I was hoping to work on my culinary school applications today. And this is where her mom is like, well, maybe you should postpone culinary school because, you know, we're going to have all this wedding planning to do and you don't want to have to postpone your honeymoon. And do you really want to be dealing with school during your first year of marriage? And this upsets Jessica a lot because she was really excited about culinary school. So she goes into the kitchen and meets Harland, and she's like, hey, I want you to be my culinary school. I want you to teach me how to cook. And he's not so sure about it, but she convinces him. And he starts, you know, giving her culinary school lessons in secret. And her mom comes in and is like, what's going on, guys? And Jessica, you know, covers. She's like, oh, we're just going over the wedding menu. Her mom buys it for now, but she's suspicious. And then we get like a cute romantic montage of them in culinary school, and, you know, they could be feeding each other spoonfuls of soup and, you know, kneading dough together. And we see them start to fall in love. And then we get our villain moment. So, in the original, we discover that Billy and Bunny, Jessica's mom, are secretly sleeping together. And the reasons for them wanting Jessica to marry Billy is that Bunny wants Billy's family fortune, and Billy wants to secretly pork Jessica's mom at family functions, or excuse me, it's KFC, secretly chicken Jessica's mom at family functions. Which, I mean, everyone pointed out that this doesn't make any sense because with those motivations, they should just marry each other. I mean, sure, it's gross, but it's less gross than involving Bunny's daughter in the whole affair. So what I've done is kind of recenter the need for Jessica in their villainy. Bunny's motivation is that with the absence of her husband on the company board, they just refer to the family business as the company the whole time, which I thought was amusing and vaguely villainous. And Bunny needs Billy on the board of the company so that they can keep power within the family. And we reveal this when Billy comes to the mansion and Bunny is like, hey, how's your relationship doing? And he's like, it's fine, whatever. And she's like, well, Jessica's spending a lot of time in the kitchen these days. Maybe I should check on that, Billy. You wouldn't want to ruin our evil plans, would you? And he's like, okay, I'll figure it out, geez. Okay, so then we go back to Jessica and Harland, and they're in the kitchen finishing up a culinary lesson, and Harland's like, you know, I'm really impressed with you. You're very natural with ingredients and flavors. And she's like, aw shucks, thanks so much. And he's like, you know what? I think you could help me with something. And he brings out his secret recipe. He's like, hey, I'm working on the secret recipe, but something's off. I don't know what's off. Can you look at it? And she's like, sure. And she, you know, jots something down with a pencil. She's like, what about this? We don't see any of it, of course, because nobody can know what the 11 herbs and spices are. It's a big old secret. So she jots something down. She's like, what about this? And he's like, that just might work. I think you might have cracked it. And at this moment, Billy comes into the kitchen and he's like, yo, Jessica, we're going to dinner. Go put something nice on. We're going. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, come on. I'm your fiance. Your fiance can't surprise a girl anymore? I'm Brooklyn now. But he's like, Jessica, go put on something pretty. And then she leaves and he threatens Harland. Not with his famous crouton comment.
Beat it, crouton.
Don't call me crouton.
But he's like, yo, this kitchen is closed to visitors. I don't want to see you with her anymore. This is over. Jessica and Billy go to the restaurant and it's very awkward. They're having quite a silent dinner. Billy's like, so I've heard you've been spending a lot of time in the kitchen. And she's like, where'd you hear that from, my mom? She's giving you intel now? And he's like, no, it's fine. And she starts getting angry with him about how the proposal went and how they didn't even talk about marriage first. Like, well, you said yes, didn't you? And he starts saying, why don't we move the wedding up? Then you can do culinary school and, you know, I can do my thing. And she's like, what thing is that? And she basically works out of him that he is expecting to be put on the board of the company upon their wedding. And she's like, so basically you didn't actually want to marry me, you just want to be the head of the company. And he's like, no, that's not what it is. And she's like, I think it is what it is. And she gets very angry, gives him back the wedding ring, and storms off. And she goes to Lee's house where they have a little talk, and she's like, I think I love Harland. And Lee's like, why don't you just run away together? And she's like, I don't know, I couldn't just leave my mom. And Lee's like, well, you can think about it a little bit and you can stay at my place overnight. They go back to the mansion together to get Jessica's stuff so she can spend the night with Lee. When they get there, she's like, hey Lee, can you go get my notebook from the kitchen? Now, meanwhile, back at the mansion, Billy went back to confront Harland in the kitchen because he's like, yo, you're stealing my girl. My plan is foiled. And they get in a little scuffle, and Billy locks Harland in the walk-in freezer. And he also steals his secret recipe. And Bunny comes in, she's like, what are you doing? What happened? And he's like, he was trying to steal Jessica. And she's like, you realize I could have just fired him, right? And he's like, it's too late for that now. And this comes with another plot point where, you know, the progression of the actual movie felt very odd. It was like Billy tried to bribe Harland, and then there was like this fake, you know, argument between Harland and Jessica that I didn't feel was necessary, and it was resolved in 2 seconds. So I felt like this was a more natural progression of the action. Bunny is basically like, I'll fix this, you go apologize to Jessica and get her back, and I will figure out what to do with the chef now. Because it's like a Ratatouille situation. You can't take the kidnapping back. If you let him go now, he's gonna call the cops. So Lee comes down to the kitchen to get Jessica's notebook, and he runs into Bunny. And she's like, oh, hey, nothing to see here. And he's like, hey, I'm just looking for this notebook. And Harland starts yelling from the freezer, like, let me out, dude. And Lee's like, did you hear something? What was that? And Bunny's like, I have no idea what that was. How bizarre. And as Lee goes to check on the freezer, Bunny hits him over the head with a pan. Rapunzel style. We go back to Jessica, and Billy comes into the room, and he's like, hey, I saw what happened in the kitchen. I wanted to make sure you're okay. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Harland left. He just packed up his stuff and he left without a word. I thought maybe you two had a fight or something. And she was like, that doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't just leave me. She's like, let me go see. And Billy's like, no. You don't need to worry about it. It's fine. Nothing to see here. Just stay in your room and let's talk. And she's like, no. And so she knees him in the balls and runs for the kitchen. I feel like that's much more of what Billy deserved, and I'm glad I could give you this moment. And so Jessica gets into the kitchen, and she sees her mom standing over Lee with a frying pan, and her mom tries to play it off like, oh my gosh, your friend just attacked me. I don't know what happened. How bizarre. And Jessica's like, save the shit, Mom. I know what's going on. And, you know, they start to get in an argument. Her mom starts threatening her with a knife, which is like super classy. And once again, Lee saves the day. He gets up from his frying pan injury and he knocks over a shelf onto Bunny. It wasn't the most climactic thing, but I couldn't think of anything better. So that's what we're doing. He knocks over a shelf and Jessica's like, Lee, you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go call 911 now. And she's like, great idea. Then she rescues Harland from the freezer and he falls into her arms and they're like, I love you too. And it's, you know, the magical moment that we're all waiting for. Now, if I've learned anything from watching Kenny JD, it's that Lifetime movies always end with a wedding. The goal of a Lifetime movie is to get to the wedding. So while I personally don't think it's that important to have the wedding scene, I will respect the genre that I'm writing in, and I provided a very brief wedding scene, basically carbon copy from the original. And the last scene, instead of this weird like mental hospital that Bunny's in, and then Billy comes to see her and he's like, I found the chicken, it left a lot of questions. In the last scene, Bunny and Billy are standing in the foyer of the mansion while people like move all of the stuff out. Kind of Schitt's Creek like, where they're just watching as their lives crumble because Billy couldn't get a hold of the company or whatever. I thought this was a little more accurate because they're rich, so I feel like they wouldn't have seen any consequences to their actions really. So I went with that option. And Billy's on the phone and he hangs up and he's like, "We got the property." And Bunny's like, "We did." And he's like, "Yes, it's small, but it's just what we need." And he pulls out the stolen recipe card from Harland. And the implication here is that Harland has started the KFC franchise, and Billy is now starting his own franchise to compete. The big reveal is that Billy is the owner of Popeyes. I just feel like that's a much better way to end the movie, and then you get some extra KFC propaganda in there because you're like, hey, our competitor is like straight up evil. Now, this is not by any means a KFC or Popeye commentary. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't really have any stake in any of this. I just thought it was thematically fun. And that is my KFC rewrite. I have this now. I have this script. It's 18 pages long. I threw this together in a couple of days, and I did not look over it or edit it once I finished the first draft. So I'm not saying that this is the masterpiece to end all masterpieces by any means. It's simply just an example of what I think this movie could have been. And, you know, mine isn't perfect either. I'm throwing stones in a glass house over here, but this was just for a bit of fun. And if you're at all interested, I will leave a link down below where you can read the full script. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Jessie. If you're interested in following me, I will leave all my links down below. And subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, bye!